version of PCCam.
What's PCCam?
That's the 3D rendering thing that Simulator uses. EasyCam.
I don't know.
It's the rendering environment and camera angles that they use for the simulator.
For their simulator?
Yeah. Well, for the simulator. Using this one.
Oh my god, it's 8 o'clock. Kyle said he's bringing pancakes.
Really?
So he said.
Miles does a lot of things.
He does.
It's true. Not sure what all to expect.
When he came through, he did once just text me a picture of waffles. And I figured out he wanted to go to Roscoe's.
Oh yeah. Did he take you to Roscoe's?
Met him at Roscoe's.
I feel like I sort of instigated that whole thing. And I didn't go.
Oh yeah.
Like I was probably talking about it, but not in the position or mood to do anything about it.
That's okay, I'm pretty sure Franz Ferdinand felt the same way about World War I. They were really good waffles.
During World War I?
They had a Luftwaffe.
What? Oh, God. Man, I don't know anything about World War I.
That was actually a World War II reference.
Irresistible.
The extent of my World War II knowledge comes from Axis and Allies.
Nice.
As far as I know, anybody could.
I was raised by international relations / economists, and someone studied linguistics and ancient history. So I'm just kind of grew up with.
Really?
Yeah.
Complete
Dang, that's pretty
randomness.
awesome.
With what?
Complete randomness.
Yeah. Like I learned
No, that's why you're always such a hoot at the dinner table. You've got this wealth of knowledge.
totally useless knowledge. Yeah.
Well, fascinating and at least believable.
I like it somehow. Well, I mean, being raised really religious.
You should never lie or ride. It's not safe.
Okay, man, I won't do it again.
Especially if you're convincing. It's a slippery slope, man.
Yeah, well. Yeah, raised really religiously Jewish too. It's just like tons of like totally useless trivia.
There's just a lot of history baked into that education as well, right?
Pretty depressing history, but yeah.
But more factual than Christianity.
Mm.
Man, that person is so flashy.
There's apparently a way to fix that, and it does have to do with like 3D rendering.
Yeah.
I think with the last session, Judanica is old enough that like nobody's really ever gonna call anybody on it.
Right.
You know, whereas Christianity is recent enough, like you know, what's like 5-6,000 years ago, like nah.
You'd be lucky if you find one opinion, so you just pretty much have to believe it.
I did.
And the little guys, they're so cute. Hi.
Feels like fast food.
There are a lot of
Don't
unpopular Israeli archaeologists who go around noticing things like there were never certain migrations.
There were never any what?
There are certain migrations that in fact don't show any evidence of having happened.
Oh, I saw this on TV today.
Like what?
And I saw you and you on TV today too.
Wait.
I think
What
the
TV?
main thing
Well,
is
it was
the
on his
timing
TV.
of the different,
Online.
Moses and
Oh,
all
okay.
that.
We watched the thing about
Like-
it.
And
He was
you
showing me the
consider
thing
that
about
the
the thing.
Egyptians really
And you
Oh,
were
this is the
there.
thing
And
about
you
the
were
thing.
there.
You could have been slaves to the Egyptians.
You were there,
This is
and
like
you were
the-
there, and Auntie Em.
I was out of the TV. I was not
So
inside
glad
the
you're
TV.
back home now.
I was outside the TV.
So you gotta work it.
So
The
yeah.
stories get
Yeah.
put together. But
What
I
worked last
actually,
time.
my data is really old now, and it was interesting at
It's
the
one of
time,
those
but
little
I
horsey
didn't,
running things.
you know,
Yes.
fasten it down to the right references to make
You can see the
sure.
horse running.
Like the ones that went around
The
with
Jews are probably just
It was actually the original motion
their
studies. There
territory was
was
pretty much a buffer
that
between
over whether or not
Egyptians
it's
and
all four
Hittites.
legs
That's
left
what
or not.
they're used was.
Yeah.
And so this was actually set up with a sequence of cameras with triggers.
I have a friend who did I'm a veterinarian, and I have a friend who did a study on that in Africa on elephants, because they have the same thing. And he proved that elephants did the same thing.
They actually run.
They actually get off
Wow.
the ground. I know.
I always heard they
He didn't do a
jump.
flip book though.
Elephants don't jump.
Oh, they don't jump. No, the question
They
is whether
don't
or not when
jump.
they're
They
running.
actually run.
When
and
they're
they
running
get
at
off.
speed.
They get all 4 feet off the ground, just like horses do.
Oh.
That's rad.
Yeah.
Are they afraid of mice?
I don't think so. Only because the mice run up their noses
Oh.
and they
That could be
obstruct their
awkward.
nasal passages.
Oh.
So you could just go.
Yeah.
Nobody has
Like
time for that.
that.
It's
Oh,
not
God.
good.
Now I'm afraid of mice.
Is
I
it
know.
safe to park
They
in
won't
that
run up your
office?
nasal passages.
Yeah.
Mice are
This
great.
time of night, yeah.
Yeah.
After
Plus,
about 5 o'clock,
Plus,
we usually
my
share,
shoe
and
gets
there
every once in a
we
while.
That's
talk
pretty
with them.
cool.
So yeah.
Because
Nice
it says their office is closed until
I
June
kinda
4th
love them.
anyway, so
Oh.
Pretty
I guess it's extra safe.
When they're in boxes,
Huh.
not like.
Well, that's good to know.
It's so safe, it's super safe.
There's only one vehicle that's not allowed to park back there that I know of.
Oh,
There's the yellow Nissan SUV that the guy lives over there.
Oh,
in
okay.
apartments. And so he always parks it there, and I know that's the only vehicle that's not allowed to park there.
But we're okay.
Yeah, we talk with them all the time, and they'll come over and probably
remember that?
say hi if there's a problem.
Yeah, like mine of that.
Yeah.
But
you're-
theirs works.
You're
That
a little
That one may or may
picture
not work.
Oh, someone last night told me that it did work.
This one, it should work.
It works-ish.
It was working when it was set there.
Yeah, mine works.
There's sort of a weird conservation where you only need one working 3D printer at any given time. Because if you've got one working, you're not motivated to fix any of the other ones.
Right.
And as soon as
So
the
this one
broken,
actually-
you're
yeah.
spending all your time fixing one until you.
So this
switch it
has
again.
been upgraded. These are Gen 4 electronics and it's stepper.
Yeah, and a better extruder too.
Yeah, it's a stepper extruder instead of the DC one.
Yeah. Yeah, mine goes about halfway through a print and then it just goes, completely loses its shit and jams
Usually
itself
call
into the
this
pipeline.
a MakerBot 1.5 because it's got all the MakerBot 2, the Thingomatic electronics running
I
it.
tried to get him to make me a squirrel on it, and he said no, it's not gonna work.
Yeah, it takes a
Because I
while.
love squirrels.
Well,
I mean, I think that little purple thing there took, how many hours was that, Matt, before it failed?
This thing?
That ran all night at Bill. I actually made 4 of those, and they were like, yeah.
That could have been a squirrel if you designed it
here,
properly.
look at this.
It's actually
I have
just a very
another thing
small
back
part
here.
of the squirrel. That's just his toe.
Oh, it's a squirrel
Much,
toe.
much larger.
It's gonna be a ginormous squirrel.
Yep.
Awesome.
It's just scale.
I can't wait.
You don't show the other printer.
Yeah.
They have a real
Thanks,
printer.
dear. I'm keeping myself on
Much
my
hardware is easy.
Should I?
Yeah.
Why?
There's a lot of like broken things around.
There are.
Little legs.
Yeah, there's lots of resistor
there's-
leads and stuff.
I have very tough
Oh,
feet.
yeah.
Electronic stuff.
They'll
We
still
got it,
go in
but
straight.
Yeah.
All right.
Not a terrible admiral though.
I've been as guilty of cutting wires as I've been cutting and leaving little bits flying all over the place.
Yeah, I often question like, do I have to wear closed-toed shoes at crash phase?
It depends on how often.
And I'm like, usually I do, but every once in a
Yeah,
while.
it was-
I'm
it
like,
was
well,
the-
okay,
it
we're
was-
flip-flops,
it was
but
the
I'm gonna
point
stay
at
away
which-
from the wood shop.
I had a scalpel roll off a desk and start falling towards my foot. And on the way down, I went, huh, I'm wearing flip flops. I should probably move my foot. That was, and I actually had to like think about it. About halfway down, I'm like, okay, I'll move it. That was the point at which I decided not to wear open shoes in the shop anymore.
I've gotten a reflex that if I am doing any kind of cutting of any sort whatsoever and something falls, I jump
Oh, yeah,
back.
totally.
I just jump back, let it fall. I got a thorn yay big through my flip flop. Someday. Yeah, it was, I mean, actually, it just poked through far enough so that, oh, we got a pebble in the flip flop. I tried to shake it out, and I finally turned the damn thing over and pulled it.
Yes.
But I mean, there's $1.99 sets or flip flops. You don't expect massive protection.
And I've got a pair of flip flops from Seoul, and they lasted for 4 years now. They're only a couple of bucks.
I've
Yeah.
got this Hawaiian flip-flops that I have for like 15 years. They're like the ones that are really, really nice.
I've got a pair of Reefs that I had for a very long time, but
Rockers, yeah. I remember.
the like pair I bought 12 years ago lasted, and the pair I bought 6 years ago only lasted about half a year. You know, I've gone through them, and their prices doubled. It's kind of annoying.
Yeah, Matt, you said what last
So we
year?
are expecting pancakes at some
Some
point.
flip-flops that I got from
And probably a
Hawaiian.
few more people.
They're like this, just kind of the traditional ones that everybody has, just brown plastic.
Yeah.
They're not like the flip-flops that have the thing between your toes, but they got like this.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody had. So weird. All the stylish ones are great. Crocs coming down.
No, they will never go. Yeah, I've been talking with Alex, and I think we may have some awesomeness to come.
Alex Smith
Yes.
in France.
He's leaving, he's actually staying on Steve's boat tonight, he's leaving on first. But he's doing a bunch of, he's working with like open frameworks. So it's kind of at a high layer, a little bit pretty abstracted, but he's doing a bunch of 3D stuff.
For what?
He's got like, so he's trying to generate enough revenue on iPhone games, iPhones, that he can basically, so he took 3 months off to get his apps up to par, and then 1 month in, his wife said, get more stuff. And so that's why he's going back to France, is because he can stay with his family, take the time to get to stuff up to speed in an environment where he's not. Yeah, he supported her through getting all her.
So what kind of awesomeness are you referring to?
Interactive 3D configuration. Basically an iPad app that allows you to model stuff and then control it.
Oh, there's like a control service for this thing?
But so this is actually pretty easy to do. It's just hobbled together, but it's really the simulation engine that is the hardware, and that's the valuable part. As far, I mean, it's
You need to actually represent
As
that
a-
as
as
a
I-
circle instead of representing it as a square.
yeah. So let me actually, Matt, let's try and slide this over.
I'm
And then
noticing.
we can
Where do you
place
want me?
some of the whiteboard.
Cushion?
Yeah, there shouldn't be too much material on there. Let me just turn on lights. It's big and bulky. It's not actually all that heavy.
Well, so you can put it on this side for about a foot.
We're going to go about 2 feet. You should be good. That's on the slide. Okay.
I don't know. Nope.
What? Yeah, we'll put that one more. Just so we can create some whiteboard. How much we need? Aren't even on top yet, are we?
Yeah. That's pretty good ceiling.
Okay, that's what ceiling's too low.
Holding up the ceiling now. If we take this out, the room's gonna fall out.
That's perfect.
Oh no, Sean Bonner's asked me to join LinkedIn.
Oh.
I didn't even know he was on there.
Yeah.
You can finally find out what he does!
I
No.
know what he does.
One and two.
The Alpha and the Omega.
I can't believe those guys got him and Peter are visiting researchers at MIT Media Lab.
Oh yeah, that's right.
For the next year, they have an appointment as researchers.
Oh, they've got an official distinction? as
Like no,
visiting
like full
researchers?
salary, fully salaried visiting researchers.
Yep.
But they don't have to be in Boston.
They have deliverables in Boston. They had to they're during the Safecast Hackathon. They had to go out and do like the intro meet and greet and paperwork and stuff.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's so fucking badass.
That's awesome.
Yep. It's pretty awesome. To just
Yeah.
kinda-
So, but it was funny because it's not related to Joy. It's actually under a different professor there.
Right.
Well, because Joy doesn't have students or researchers, and so they're in the multimedia area.
Dude.
So they're responsible for doing some sort of like multimedia, or not multimedia, sorry, social network related stuff. And actually doing, they will have deliverables with real reports and stuff.
That's bloody amazing.
Yeah.
You want to hear what Sean Bonner's title is on LinkedIn?
Is it his normal title?
No.
Isn't there?
No, different one.
Oh.
Do tell.
Troublemaker.
Ah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, that's
So basically just, that was a self-description, that wasn't really a title.
Do you know what we're talking about?
Do you know
We're
Sean?
talking about somebody that's not there.
I don't believe
He's
that.
the person who kind
He's
of
one of our founders.
got started this place.
yeah.
He's
yeah.
the person who spawned the idea and was one of the founders.
Yeah.
I may have run into him in one of my earlier visits, but I've only had about half a dozen times.
He always wears all black, tattoos,
Vegan.
vegan.
Totally straight edge.
I mean, I can
He's
fit that description to several
Totally
people,
straight edge, but
nobody had-
well, not necessarily. Classically straight edge.
Right.
Like, doesn't drink,
Right.
doesn't smoke, doesn't. He's
Should we
a
do
very
that?
interesting individual. I think basically the best, knowing him and spending time with him, the best way to describe him is he is very, his beliefs are well thought out and justified. And he respects people who do this, have the same thing. So you can believe something that's different than him, as long as you have a justification for it. And I think that's part of the reason we get along pretty well, is because most of the stuff that I choose to accept based on something. And he's in the same way. And it's kind of really interesting interacting with him within that, thinking about it within that context. Because it's like he will be, almost everything in his life he has done for a reason. He doesn't say it's a good or bad reason, but if there was a decision made, there was a conscious decision, not a just kind of, it happened.
Yeah, I'd rather live with my decisions than put up with anybody else's.
Well, it's not so much putting up with someone else's decisions. It's the difference between kind of passively going through life and letting it happen to you, versus taking an active role in deciding what happens to you.
I guess that's why I asked me why I was vegetarian.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I've talked 7 people out of being vegetarian and not one into it. Because if you go through the thought process, they're like, "What's your reason for being vegetarian?" And I know my reason.
I know my reason.
I've been brainwashed.
Oh, for me it's
It actually physically upsets my stomach to think about eating meat. I mean, I was shown videos of slaughterhouses as a kid growing up, with cows getting their heads cut off so they can drain the blood out so it doesn't ferment.
I must have mental problems because I just remember growing up like killing and eating things.
Well, that's no. So So I'm actually in the exact same. So
Yeah.
someone who appreciates where their meat comes from,
Yeah.
I'm perfectly okay with. I'm perfectly okay with people eating meat. I have absolutely no problem with that. It's people who think meat comes, who are not appreciating the consequences of their actions.
Well, that's like why I mean it's just the ecological impact. It's just like
Well, there's so many reasons. Yeah, I mean there's about a 10-to-1 concentration factor. You basically 10 pounds of grain generates 1 pound of beef, so it's
Exactly.
hugely inefficient.
That's the one that always makes sense to me. Sure.
What's that?
Just the energy loss.
But you flip it on the other side. You're like, wait, I'm getting the concentrated protein. You basically are taking advantage of being the next level up in the food structure, until some nastiness bioconcentrates and kills you.
there's that too. But it's just
Yeah, no, but I mean, that's the kind of thing is
Yeah.
like, if you have a reason for it, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's, we all have our own reasons for doing things. Okay, is this on? Oh, hey, it's right there.
anyway. Sean's an interesting dude.
He's good.
Okay, that's going to be slightly annoying, but
Yeah, he's
What is it when you have the mechanism you can slide things sideways?
yeah, I don't know if it can do.
actually not too
It
shabby.
actually probably can. Except for the fact that my computer doesn't.
You just a giant
Oh,
maker
no,
bot.
it's probably running off Kyle's laptop.
You're in the HDMI.
I unplugged the HDMI. My computer is blanked out, so it knows that it's there, but the data's not getting up to here. Oh, is that not turned on?
No, I just don't.
Okay, it's either VGA input was selected.
I don't think it has anything like that.
It does. It has a VGA input right here.
Actually, up in Santa Barbara area.
No, that's only an HDMI switch here.
That's as far as we come, but we're just starting to.
Can you see if there's a remote control
Great,
port
down
somewhere
in the
there?
South Thousand Oaks area.
There should be an input select.
Getting down this way.
It's cool. I'm now connected to Sean. Thanks,
But it's not there.
Hmm? It's doing something. Upper left hand corner there.
That was HDMI. Selected.
Okay, and then turn on over there.
It's turned on down.
And the correct channel selected. It just gave me it back to me, so it's not selected anymore. Just gave my screen back. Oh, okay.
Switch. Alright.
Okay,
Yeah, this isn't actually
keep
too
in it for a
good.
second.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
just gonna get rid of here.
Okay, I just got, oh, it did something and then,
I did it?
no,
Oh, now.
nope,
Oh, now.
nope,
Oh, now.
nope.
I don't know if it's a different.
Now something, oh, and then it came back.
Sean is endorsed
Okay.
for
Okay,
subcultures.
okay, wait.
Sean is what?
Sean is endorsed for subcultures.
Yeah, endorsements on LinkedIn are just a joke.
I know.
Well, it's funny, like a friend of my mom is like endorsing me for all my embedded development and doesn't have any.
But you're LinkedIn, aren't you?
What's that?
She's-
Oh, well,
she's
no,
with
she
you,
can endorse
so,
me, but,
yeah.
but she knows nothing about embedded
Right,
development.
well-
It's just kind of entertaining.
But
that-
she knows you, and yeah, just
Yeah.
I like when your friends endorse you for the things that are a little more
Weird.
edgy,
Yeah.
like like you did it once or twice, but the stuff that you do all the time and that they know that you do, they don't endorse you for that.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, like all these languages.
No, it's-
people
we were
use
having
for
that-
grant writing.
Let's see what that does. So I have no idea what's going on here.
Yeah, no, I've never used this thing. You were just trying to hook into the projector directly?
Okay, is the cable come down far enough? Why are there two cables going up there? Oh, one's for the camera.
One's for the camera, one's for the projector, and
Okay, so,
Yeah.
our daughter.
This cable's loose. You can't just unplug this cable?
yeah. I don't know, these are pretty crappy cables, so sometimes they're just...
Yeah, they've been getting stepped on a lot with the new configuration.
Do you guys
Oh.
have a bathroom?
We got
There's
two.
two. The one on the
Two
left there is your best bet.
Yeah, it's great.
Is there
One with the shower.
Is
One
there a
on
girl versus a boy bathroom?
the one on the left is cleaner, so yeah.
I don't really care.
Conforming to your.
I'm not that way, but thanks.
Make sure there's toilet paper before you.
It's
not always there. No, it's the this thing doesn't is on the wrong input. Oh, there we go. Okay. And unfortunately, oh, okay. Did I do anything? No. Did do something, and we've got my bonuses. Okay. So, where to start here? So this was partially built for the Red Bull Creation Challenge. The Red Bull Creation is something, I guess I can show you've all seen the video though, haven't you? That's okay. I'll turn the sound down and talk over it.
It was well done though.
Alex did an awesome job. And that's actually something that was really interesting about this. The deliverable was a 3-minute video. And so during the build process, we went back and forth a number of times and deciding to build more and then having someone, myself, Alex, or Matt, push back and say, the deliverable is a 3-minute video. And so we actually planned pretty close to up front. So on the video layout, how we were going to present it, that kind of stuff, and then just actually, I guess there had been about a week of building before we sat down and did that. So we're about halfway through the build. Yeah. So this was the thing they sent us. It was a box that had kind of these cool clips in there that were laser cut to fit pegs and holes. And it came with where's the Red Bull?
I don't know. I haven't seen it around. It was right back there. Right there. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Oh. Power on this somewhere? I do have power on this somewhere, but I don't have power plugged to go this way.
Wait, this
It's a standard. No, it's back on right here.
Okay.
There is one unplugged laying on the floor. I'm not that sure wild guess it came from that. So, this goes to, should be called the shiny lights. Come on, you can do it. No, something disconnected? Okay, camera on the glass. There we go. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, so basically they give you a piece of hardware and then ask you to do something cool with it. This was the piece of hardware they gave us. It has 8 channels of 12-volt RGB drivers. It has an addressable, and they gave us 5 meters of LED strip, an addressable LED driver. They gave us a meter of addressable LED strip, but as you can see, we just have to go with a little bit more. Just yeah, like maybe 31 or so. So it also has a DMX output, which we didn't end up using. We set it up to kind of control itself. So when the initial challenge was to create an interactive light piece, show it in a public location, and submit a 3-minute video about it. And there was supposed to be extra points for how awesome your public, or be awesome, or make it awesome, or something like that. What was the?
Be awesome. Don't be stupid.
Oh yeah, don't be stupid. Don't get arrested.
Yeah.
So
It's like
that was one thing. So this, even though the name is Crash inspired, to be honest, it was actually inspired by a piece of artwork by Leo Villarreal. YouTube. One sec. RMAMENT2. That's probably close enough. Yeah. How do you spell firmament?
F-I... Permanent. Yeah, 2 N's. With an N and A.
I spell most of my stuff with a right click.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not a real word.
Yeah,
You see it?
I think it's with an A. Yeah,
Oh, it's right there. Firmament 2. Why is it bringing up this crap?
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for this.
Oh.
So, this is an art piece that's probably about 1.5 the size of this. That was done by an artist named Leo Villarreal. He did the Bay Lights project, the 25,000 LEDs on the Bay Bridge. So,
Running Man 2 years ago.
I was at Burning Man this year. And you did, yeah, you're
It
right.
was
It was
2
2
years
years ago as
ago,
well. I guess last year it wasn't there.
Yeah, I
Was it-
remember that.
was Ryan there?
Yeah, Ryan.
It was there for the last 2 years.
Oh, it was,
Yeah.
okay, then.
Went out for the first time.
I
2
wasn't
years
there
ago.
for the last 2 years.
Yeah, it was
so-
on the Esplanade 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on E. 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock.
Yes.
I'm a teacher, I'm still here.
So, has been some advances in LED technologies. There's these new addressable strips that actually have the LED controller built into them. So at slightly increased costs, because you're not paying for two separate packages, you just kind of take all the silicon, shove it in one. And so for just a little bit more, you can get double the density. And so the thought was to build a piece similar to this that would be an interactive piece. So I think that's a major distinction between the type of work that Leo does. He is using algorithms and emergent behavior, but he does it in such a way that he picks stuff that is artistically beautiful, and then when he actually displays it, he's displaying hand sequences. It's all generated. He doesn't allow complete randomness in his art piece because it creates stuff that he doesn't want to present as an artist. Whereas we were not so concerned about that.
How long of a strip can you do with the addressing?
These strips are actually 240 LEDs long, and we can upgrade at about 18 frames a second.
Okay.
So it's a shift register. So if you double the strip length, it's half the frame rate.
Okay.
So if you wanted to run really slow stuff, then so in order to make it an interactive piece, the initial thought was to do it on the storefront here because they've been a storefront music project that Crashbase had done previously. But in order to make it more interactive, we decided to actually build it on the back of my truck. And so Steve, myself, and Nate spent a day and a half building the frame that all this will go on. And what you're actually seeing here is one of the side panels. So it's set up actually to have the side panels fold down, so everything is flexible. And Alex ruined one of his lenses, put it in front of the grinder. It got all pitted and stuff. Okay, so I'm going to pause that for a sec. So I guess, so with the new technology was out there, we were trying to think kind of how we could get the most impact on the time we had. This was built in, I actually had to fly out of town for a week for a SafeCast hackathon, and so even though we had, I think, 3 weeks to build, my part of it needed to be done within the first 2 weeks. And so I tried to figure out how we could get as much done within that time frame, or what we could do within that time frame. And so the first thing, I went to Burning Man for the first time last year and encountered this Orient, and inside their dome they had this huge LED piece. It was 40 strips, 5 meters long, I think they were. You know?
Yeah.
It's how long?
Yeah, 5
Yeah, 5 meters. Okay, yeah. So fortunately, they had done some really nice software that would actually simulate the dome in processing. Actually, see if I made it. It's worth showing. Sketchbook, Red Bull, Disorient. That's not it. Okay, I don't know where it is offhand. So that's it. Just checking on this. Oh, okay, I'm just gonna forget it. I've managed to break my build. So the really so that actually allowed me to start much earlier than when we ordered hardware. So the first thing I did was put an order for the LED strips. It was 32 meters, 8 rolls, 4 meters long, from China, and paid expedited shipping, so we could get them here in somewhere between 5 and 8 days. Fortunately, they actually showed up in 5 days, which was great. And then put in an order for some of the, so another relatively new thing here is I'm using a Teensy 3.0. I don't know if you guys are familiar at all with the Teensy. So Paul, what's his last name? Or it doesn't matter. So has been doing this really cool little kind of miniature microcontroller. And this one is, it's Arduino compatible. It's been using the AVR core, but this is the first one with an ARM core. And one of the nice things about the ARM core is it has something that's called direct memory access, or DMA. And what that allows you to do is, there's different ways you can interact with things. At the very basic level, you're literally manually banging a band, bit banging. You say high, low, high, low, high, low. You go to the next step, there's a piece of hardware like the SPI hardware I2C, you give it a byte, and then it gets it out there for you. Kind of DMA takes it to the next level, which is you give it a chunk of data, and you say, all this stuff right there, get it out there for me. And it's all done in hardware. So you can just sit back and relax, or do the rest of your work while that's running. And that's what's allowing this single little microcontroller right here to update 1,920 LEDs at 15 frames a second. It's pushing the limit of how many it can do. So, kind of looking at what was out there and thinking about all the parts and how they were going to come together, got the strips ordered, got the microcontrollers ordered, started working with the software to do a simulation. It was set up to simulate a dome, so I had to remove the Z element and lay it flat, and then turn it up sideways so I could actually see it. And also trying to figure out the timing. So what actually happened is the orders went in, I think, on Wednesday. I spent 2 days getting the processing code working, or 3 days. And then on Sunday, I was actually starting to bring up the embedded firmware. On Monday, the microcontrollers got shipped in. So I was able to bring them, get the firmware onto them, put a logic analyzer and test it without the LED strips. On Tuesday, the LED strips came in. And these are actually 4 meters of LEDs, but because we wanted in this pattern, they had all been individually cut and jumped. So it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4 is one strip. So there's 8 strips around this. But they all had to be cut and jumped. So got that mostly done. I got about half of it done and decided to bring up half of the board. And then promptly went through the process of frying for the 5 devices I had ordered. So it's kind of interesting. The devices we're working with are an ARM core, and one of the nice things about Arduino is it uses an obsolete chip. The nice thing about obsolete chips is they still understand what 5-volt DTL logic is. So if you put 5 volts on them, they don't blow up. All your new chips, you put 5 volts on them, they blow up. And
So what voltage do you have to?
it's 3.3 is the standard.
Okay.
Your new ultra low power ones are going down to 1.8. But it'll probably operate down to 1.8. It doesn't matter. It can update its own flash. It will run, but not update. So this one is running at 3.3, and one of the things, there's been a lot of complaints on the forums and stuff that the ARM cores are not as robust, and because people are blowing up pins all the time because Arduinos do silly things like use the pin from the current directly to drive big LEDs. And this is a scale that I kind of hadn't worked at before. It's getting to the point where we actually have very high current devices on the order of 30 or 40 amps, or actually on the order of about 15 amps, because I never turn it on all white. But I'm told this is, on Paul's setup, he will draw, I guess if you were to turn on the LEDs all white, it'll draw about 100 amps. So there's part of the reason it's selected to use not all the LEDs at once is that I don't want to be able to store that kind of power. But it's the design is what's called a split rail design. So I've got one thing here that's running at 3.3 volts, and then the rest of the system is running at 5 volts. And you can play some games by throwing some resistors in and kind of make it sort of interact. What happens is there's still a different... 3.3 is actually high enough for it to think that it's high. And if you put a resistor in there, it'll basically just draw current proportional to the resistance. But you can't run stuff as fast as you need to. But since I was really in a hurry and didn't actually have access to the level translator chips that I needed, I decided to go with that route. And that's actually what caused me to blow out things. It was a number of pretty interesting failures. The first one, I just wired it up and it drew too much current and popped. Then I started, the second one was actually a little more interesting, where I had powered up about half the strips and it was drawing a bunch of current, so the voltage started to come down. I got everything working, it was working beautifully, and then I started unplugging the strips. When the load went away, the voltage came right back up and popped the device. Couldn't figure out what happened there, so I popped the second one doing the same thing. And then, I can't exactly remember how I fried the fourth one, but this was on Wednesday, and we were going to be showing this on Friday. And I was in a situation where I thought we were just dead in the water. Turns out there's actually a store, JK Electronics, down in Orange County, that has all these old school electronics, level translators. So Thursday morning, took my motorcycle down there and back, and got the level translator board, which I can show you later. It's basically hand wired with just line wires in the back.
So at what point do you need the level translator for?
What's that?
Do you always need it?
The right way to do it is to always use it.
At what point do you sometimes not need it?
So you can, the resistive stuff works at low speeds. The problem is whenever you put a resistor and you've got some capacitance that you're charging up, it's going to start rounding off your signals. And so if you need to do most of the stuff that you play with on the Arduino is what's called open collector. So it can only pull down, and then it uses a resistor to pull up. The problem is that resistor pull up, you either make it so big, so small that it's drawing a bunch of current, or so big that it pulls it up super slow. So the level translator you absolutely have to have when you need the signal to go high and low really fast. And the problem is these strips actually use a timing-based protocol. So basically they do long for 1, short for 0, long for 1, short for 0. So it's very important that those edges go up and down at exactly the right point for it to be detected correctly.
So is that using the level translator?
That's not running any addressable.
Oh, that's the 12 volt.
Those are just 12. Yeah.
But I've seen a lot of these without the level translator. And things aren't breaking.
It's a running a 5 volt.
No. So they're running so you're running a 5-volt chip, so you don't have voltage differences to start with, and you're using digital output, which can be driven high, driven low. If the AVR had open collector outputs where it could only pull down, and you had to use the 15K pull-up resistor, it would never beat the timing to pull it fast enough.
So that one's only working because of 5 volts.
3.3 volts wouldn't. It potentially would work, but you're going to basically go through the same process I went through and start popping things. Especially when you're moving up to the high current stuff. That was the thing is I hadn't actually worked with this many strips before. I'd worked with like 2 meters, but you could run off 1 pin of a 5-volt there.
Can you run 2 meters off of 3 volts?
They're 5-volt devices. So that's the other thing is these devices are not.
But you could run the data at 3 volts. So we understand the discussion.
Not necessarily.
I want to kind of open it up.
This is kind of like the 2 meters is like what you did like last year with the taking like sound to light.
Yeah, that was actually with the WS2801s, but same thing. So you can, 3.3 is close enough that it will know that it's high, and so but the problem is there's still a difference in voltage. This guy's sitting at 5, this guy's sitting at 3.3. If you connect them straight in, one of them wins. The other one loses. I don't know which one, whichever one's capable of sourcing more. Probably the 5-volt device because it's an older technology and probably sources more. So it'll probably pop the 3.3 volt. But if you put a resistor in there, that resistor will, your 1.7 volt difference will just flow as current across there. The problem is by putting the resistor in there, you now have a filter that makes it really slow to go up and down. So it's a trade-off. With a 3.3 volt device, in theory it will work, but in reality you don't want to do it. What I learned
it seems to be working on like both of those balls and the necklace we made.
But you're running 5-volt games or 5-volt devices in there, aren't you?
No.
Those aren't Arduino Pros?
3-volt Arduino FiO.
Oh.
Arduino Pro Mini.
So you would.
Necklace.
Okay. It will work, but just if there's too much voltage difference, it will. If current can
If
flow.
there's too much current.
Do you have current limiting resistors in it?
Nope.
Wow. That.
Running 5 volts to power the LEDs and 3 volts for the data.
Yeah.
That should work.
I mean, it's so.
So wait,
Normal-
does it
no.
work?
So normally for logic, logic low is guaranteed below 0.3 volts or 0.3 VCC. So with 5 volts, that's what 30% of 5 is. I don't know.
Right. Small enough.
It's probably going to be 1.5. Yeah. Since 20 is 1, 30 is 1.5 times that.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So below 1.5, it should register as low. Above 3.5, it should register as high. But because they know that it's easier to get to 0 than to get to high, a lot of times they'll set that upper threshold a little bit lower. So usually they'll guarantee logic level high above 3 volts. So if you put a 3.3 volt signal in, it goes high. It registers as high. The problem is you still have potential for the pins to fire.
Inside the WS2811.
Inside the Ws.
Because its VC is way higher.
Okay, so the actual problem so initially that's what I tried to do. The problem is you need to pull the voltage up to 3.3. So to run fast enough, you have to use a pull-up resistor. Because the 15K internal is not big enough, so I was using like a 5K pull or something, right? There was a very weak 100 milliamp 3.3 volt output from the chip. It worked for 1 or 2, but as soon as I tried more current, I basically fried the power system. Yeah. So with the isolator, it's
Why do you need more current to drive more LEDs? If it's just the data line, don't you only need enough current to hit the first one?
V is equal to IR.
I know, but don't you only need enough current to
No,
to
more
data
strips.
the first one?
I
Oh,
think
it's
I-
because you're running more in parallel.
Yeah. Because each pin
Because you're
is
running 8 in
yeah,
parallel.
we're actually running 8 in parallel. Yeah,
It's even cooler without light sources.
yeah, it kind of all blurs together.
Well, no, each light turns into a multi-pointed star on kind of astigmatism.
So this was our super advanced prototyping mechanism to ensure that the angles are right. So we took a compass and actually measured out the angles. That has nothing to do with. This is Steve sorting out electronics. This is actually mounted on the side of the bed. This is the side of the truck. We're using just standard computer power supply. It had enough current for what we wanted to do with it. This is a piece we put on the back. This was actually one of these strips that still doesn't have a cover on it. This strip right, so this was mounted on the truck the other way up, and this strip right here stopped working about 3 hours before we were going to go to Mindshare. And this, I was actually standing on the side of the truck. Someone was holding the solder iron, doing a repair, replacing that strip, which is why you'll see everyone on here is heat shrinked, except for this one. And then, but we got it all together, levitating water fountain at the back. I was about to fall asleep at that point. Yeah. So the first, on Friday we showed it at Mindshare, and then I flew out of town on Saturday, and gave my keys to everyone else who was here, and they did, showed it at a few more locations. This is actually out back in Crash Space. That is at Mindshare. This is just on the side of the street, so we just drove up, dropped the panel down, and fired it up. We're running off of inverter on the battery, and then mass generator later. They were playing the doubles out back here. Oh, so back in there. So the folks at Disorient had actually done a really nice job with the simulating part and the parts that actually generated the patterns. And Paul, who makes the Teensy, had put together a description of how to take a movie and play it to a full array of strips using the code anchor. So what I ended up doing is had a lot of very functional code. So started with Paul's code, ripped out open the movie and start playing it, and put in the listen to the stuff from the network. So we actually had a simulator that had to listen to the stuff from the network and show, and then there was a transmitter that was create images and send them across the network. So I took that part out of the simulator and put it into the teensy stuff that he had done, and then there was just a lot of tuning to get the patterns to not look like shit. I won't say that we're quite there yet. Fortunately, it's very sensitive to everything. I'm not sure if this actually.
So, in what way what part of the Twitter is interpreted and how?
So the way so that was sort of what was really actually the challenging part. We kind of wanted a Twitter tie-in, but again, it was like, well, how do we translate human language into this?
So there was.
And so what we ended up doing is there's a button on this controller that you can press, and we basically just have a saved search for any time you have a mention of this thing, and a couple of keywords like the project in general was called like Red Bull creation or RB creation, or any time we created a Twitter account that this is using to kind of like do this safe search, or anytime somebody's mentioning Crash Space LA, and it was basically just emulating hitting that button. And so it's just one of the buttons on the controller within sort of the code that's driving this. It's listening for kind of handling keyboard commands or commands over the serial.
I'm assuming you guys are as warm as I am.
So it's not taking the contents and calculating them and producing something. It's just doing a sort of look at table.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just sort of like waiting for tweets to come in and reading them, and it says, "Oh, look, this one contains a word that we think is interesting. I'm going to go ahead and just pretend somebody hit the button on the controller." There was kind of like a lot of ideas with like, well, how do we control it real time, or how do we do more interesting things? But it's just we just didn't have a really strong concept for how to make it intuitive to people. Because the danger is they're just typing random stuff, and this looks like it's doing random things, and
So I think one of the core things.
I was going to ask, so what is it reading from Twitter? So, I mean, is it something like, if you have Crashbase happy, it shows blue, or is it something as simple as that?
No, it's even more simple. If anybody tweets at Crashbase, it just sort of switches to the next sequence.
It changes the sequence.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that kind of thing is totally possible, but then it's sort of getting way deeper into the guts of like how we're generating images and then doing kind of the human language parsing.
So
That would be a pretty good one. Maybe not blue for happy.
something warmer, more. One of the things that we really wanted to do with the Twitter was not to make it a separate interaction. So we have, this is one of the more or simpler models. What this is actually doing is a particle model that I've constrained it to either go in and out or around. And so we have the danger shield that works as a slider, and it's just red, green, and blue. And so as the particles die off, I've just selected full red, so you'll see all the new particles will start generating full red. And then we can do full green. It's not quite full green because full green doesn't look all that great. There's actually still some randomization in there to give it some texture. So with the Twitter stuff, what we really wanted was something that would extend the experience of the people who were interacting with it locally. So to have a mechanism where the original concept was that someone locally could trigger something, which would then cause the Twitter to expand upon that. We didn't want it to be completely separate interactions. We wanted to move tied together. And I think that's kind of why with this one, I can press a button and change modes. That's actually a boring mode. Wow. I always forget how bright this is. So, this one wasn't there actually before. Have you seen this one, Steve?
Fireworks.
It's like tanks. It's like the old explosions in tanks.
Oh.
It's starting to look
It's like Space Mountain.
Yeah.
the Ferris wheel.
Yes. Yeah.
Space Mountain.
I mean, exactly. You seem to put a big Mickey Mouse on
Awesome.
Imagine
Imagine
Can you do the Crashbase logo?
what does that mean?
We can. I was avoiding putting actual patterns on there, trying to do generative art.
That's hard.
But
I hate that cry.
so
Which one?
This was fun.
I don't know if you can see this here. So essentially, the way this is working is we have way too many computers in the system. So this is a 32 by 60 element display. And we have 32 radials and 60 LEDs in each element. So that is what's being mapped on here. I have this one here as a basic one, so you can see this spiraling is the banding that's going on there.
That's so pretty.
It's
It's really pretty.
it's very organic. It works nice.
It's rad because
It's
how
awesome.
like the light spill makes it.
Yeah, so that was one of the things we didn't notice till after the fact. So okay.
Oh yeah. Oh, we designed for that.
Well, yeah, it turns out we get enough bleed through here that it's the light bleed out. This is a bad example. Let me go back to a different one. So the light bleed through actually builds a connection between that, creating more than the sum of the parts. You didn't quite realize that. If you look at it really closely, it actually is just light bleed through. You can see that.
Right.
And it turns out we left the diffusers on mainly to make it somewhat environmentally protected. But it turns out there's a lot of people have done this and they were looking for like maximum brightness, and they will blind you. I mean, it's painful. I tried to work very hard to turn the brightness down on this so it's not painful to look directly out. But one of the really nice things is it actually diffuses the light off the side. and then that light connects with the light here, and so you it ends up looking
I
continuous
like
right
it
there.
better when I squint my eyes.
Yeah, dirty glasses work pretty well too.
I have some of those in my shirt pocket. Dirty and scratched.
So the way patterns are, the way that most of the kind of more continuous patterns are generated. So this one right here is just a simple particle model. I don't know if you can see it there. There's particles flying sideways and particles flying down. Number 3. Okay. So this is something that they call a warp pattern, or it's a warp modifier. So if you look at kind of how it's doing the weird curviness up here, one of the really cool things that the guys built was this warp can be applied to any other pattern. So if you look here, this is the red, green, blue pattern, just as diagonal. And so you can see it's doing a clean spiral. I don't like that. I need to get those to move the other way so it spirals in instead of backwards. Now this is the exact same pattern, but the warp modifier has been applied to it. And you can see all the distortions up here, and it makes for a much more random behavior in the actual device. And it's amazing how this one simple operator applied on top of something that's actually a pretty simple pattern ends up producing something that's so much more.
I can't see that teeny
Oh.
Oh.
So let me go back to this one. We're in mode 1. So this is the diagonals.
Right.
And then we go to the next mode, and that's the diagonals applied through this warp operator. And so this is just kind of showing the curvature of what the warping is doing to it.
So
And-
what's with the one, well, actually there are two.
What's that?
Little red light, little pink ones that don't go away. There's a 1.5 of them.
They're bad pixels, and hopefully, I think it's actually some of the data is not getting to them.
No, you live in Malibu.
So this is, so what's that? No, I have seen some weird stuff with occasional residual elements.
Got one up there?
So this one right here is just balls versus spheres that are growing. And you can kind of see them, they're wrapping around there. And then if we apply the warp operator to that same one, it ends up with something that's actually, personally I think, a lot more interesting. But it was very fortunate to have access to all this generation code, and so fortunately I didn't have to write it from scratch.
So this was part of the dome code?
This was part of the dump code. And this is an amazingly simple one. This is 4 lines following each other like this. And then run through the warp code. And it does some really, really cool things.
And it comes out as a spiral because
Wait,
we
is that
laid them
warped?
out in the spiral. If these were
What?
laid out
Is
in a
that
straight,
That is warped, yeah.
here's your question. If these were laid out in a straight line going this way,
I think they're actually got a
And they
little
were
bit of
just like
randomness on the
soldiers standing
diagonal.
up,
Let
would
me,
it mimic what's on the little screen that he's showing?
yeah, let me just enable that pattern. And then, there we are. Standard chase.
Yeah, it's sort of the funny thing. You like take what would normally be a square image and just wrap it in a circle, and it's that much more compelling.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's still worked.
So where is that chase?
I don't know. I may have had, oops. 7? I can't actually see what's going on here. No, that still worked.
Yeah, the warp seems to give it like a shimmy.
What happens if you warp it twice?
Don't want to do that.
Yeah, so
There it is.
Okay, so this is actually the
It's
pattern
just
I'm
the
working.
4 lines, right?
So that's
Okay,
a,
now
that,
makes
if they were
sense.
laid out, would just be basically a straight line across the screen.
Yeah, it's basically, it's a,
Yeah.
unfortunately I can't see it as well here. Yeah, so it's basically 4 lines with a little bit of randomization. And what I've done here is to give it some texture. The colors, it will randomly kind of move towards the colors that are being selected. It's randomly choosing colors from, to get closer to it.
That's pretty slick.
Yeah, but you add the warp effect, and all of a sudden you start getting this really interesting spiraling.
The warp speed, Mr. Subaru.
It doesn't look. It's tough to tell the difference. Would you like to see?
Yeah. Let's see what happens when you
Warp factor, both dimensions. I think it's not going to look good. Let's find out.
I'm curious to see what
Sorry, the focus is also probably way off on the.
No, that's fine.
Well, because it's at a very different angle. This.
Yeah, it's fine. It's,
Stand up flat.
Yeah, that's a little small. There you go.
It's
It-
a little
it's-
spirally, but
It
it makes
it
the scene more apparent, if anything.
yeah.
More orbital, less.
The nice thing is it's really easy to play with.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And even like this is this. So one of the things I learned in the process of doing this is you need to test with diagonal lines whenever you have something that's not straight. I actually had this mounted here and then moved it to the back and ended up getting all my wires crossed. And it was really weird because what would happen is something that was, you would basically get each segment kind of out of, basically these two were swapped, and it ended up looking really weird. Yeah, it's actually at full brightness.
So that was your test pattern to get
That
it
was my test
back
pattern?
in true.
So I ended up finally converging on a diagonal test pattern. That is still warp speed. It looks much cooler up in here than it does on the actual display.
It looks bad on those places.
yeah.
Okay, I'll leave it in there.
I think it's pretty cool on display.
You need a 2 kilohertz tone to play with your test pattern though to make it really testy.
There's actually a FFT element that can take arbitrary sound and yeah. That is kind of interesting. Yeah, so pulling all that stuff together in about a week and a half, ended up getting this thing built and showing it, and as you can see, you can manually control it through the computer. You guys are welcome to play with this controller here.
What are the three things on the controller do?
Stop this. Over here. It's basically red, green, and blue. The system's built a little bit more generally than that, so it's 3 different values. The idea, I didn't want it to be bound to just red, green, and blue. In this particular pattern, it's going to replace any decaying particles with whatever color you have selected.
Oh.
So like this I've selected, so if I go solid green, it's open to play. So. And then the left button will reset to the first pattern. The right button will cycle through patterns, and the middle button will drop the bottom.
Well, that's the one I have to push now.
Oh, middle one. Oh, that's next pattern. So this you can actually see your red, green, blue interaction a lot more. So you drop the green all the way out. Or oh yeah, that's a good one. But we'll leave it. Basically, it doesn't start using the values until you move them the first time, because it starts with its defaults until it gets any changes. So you can really easily see how you can add the red, add the green. And I think this is.
Should have brought my sunglasses.
Yeah, on this pattern, if you slide the sliders down, it'll be a little less blinding for the rest of us.
Is there anything in here that shows where these 3 sliders are being controlled?
There is not. But all the code's on GitHub, so it's just a basic Arduino and a danger shield, and it's basically sending a window And so when you slide it up and down, it says like max R, min R. And then when it gets down to the bottom, it'll still have like half the window. When it gets up to the top, it'll still have half the window. And then the individual patterns can choose to use the values in different ways. Usually what they'll do is randomly select some value from within
I
those
like
values.
that. That's right.
Yellow is one of those just amazing ones.
Yeah.
It's I don't know why it's so like, it seems so unique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It seems like
But it's one of those
Oh.
ones that people are playing with reds and blues and greens and all that, and then all of a sudden yellow comes in and it's just
They were like,
fundamentally different. Well, no, they're not. I am. But that's the thing. It's like, I don't know. Yellow is one of those ones that so one of the things I really want to do. So what I found is the stuff that I like the way it looks is actually when you're doing changes on one particular color. And that gives you a kind of a mix of the individual colors. I'm probably moving this a little bit too fast for the update speed that's running here.
Whoa, crazy town. I
Yeah.
like it.
So one of the updates that I want to make is actually, instead of doing random selection, actually modulate a sine wave. So essentially, in code, I'll be doing, let me switch, oh, sorry.
That's all right.
This one may be a little too bright. So in code, let's go to one that actually.
Sometimes I see them as quite discrete, and then other ones when they're moving, they seem to be little blurs. Is that me, or is
That's
that?
in the software.
Which ones?
Okay, it's some of the individual pixels, I guess, seem to be quite discrete, and then the other ones seem to have a bigger glow.
It's
around
never
them.
freezing. So this one you can definitely see.
So
how,
this
like,
is,
these
yeah, so this
trails-
one is, kind of shows the automata that's running. So you have stuff that's going around this way and you have stuff that's going this way. It's randomly selecting the length of the tail from like something up to 15, I think. So that was a big part of it, and it's also playing a little bit of games with velocity. It's running the radial velocity slower up here, because these are spaced wider apart, so it looks like it's going shooting around. So it's actually, when it creates them at slightly different speeds based on where they are here. So you end up with them going slower in this area, and
That's why
Other
some
way
of the
around.
lights look little and some of them look big. Like Comet tail.
It's just
no,
brightness.
I think that's just the brightness, because it's selecting kind of red, green, blue, and so this is running at very, very low brightness. If you've got sunglasses, you should put them on, and I can actually show you what this is like at full brightness.
So things in the center are moving faster.
You get left them behind. Oh, no.
Actually, they're moving pixel count slower to make it move about the same, because like right here,
We were trying to
it's
make
going
a
like
fixed
1,
radial
2, 3,
velocity.
4, whereas up here 1, 2, 3, 4 is a lot further,
Oh.
and so it's been scaled to
I was
adjust for
gonna see
that.
if it's like mimicking sort of the concepts like gravity or
No, nothing that smart. Okay,
I mean, it's one of those things where you realize
let's go
how,
full brightness,
how
and this is the one that will be
great the
blinding.
human mind is at pattern matching, right?
At full power, and that's about the extent to which I can look at that. So this is capable of, there was initially some concern that it may not work well in fact that this is 15%. So,
15%.
with 1.5.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things is it really needs to be adjusted to the environment that you're in, and small percentage changes make a big difference.
So you,
And one of the interesting things, so Burning Man ended up helping Leo build his own car, and we got, it was really dusty, and so we actually got locked down in his trailer a number of times. And he was showing me, he went through, and he's like, have you seen my book? I said, you have a book? Is it new? Well, it's a couple years old. Anyway, it turns out one was published, but I didn't actually know who he was before I went to Burning Man. I believe Matt was the person who said maybe you should just Google his name. Someone put a posting to tow the golf cart for gas. It was $350 round trip. So I'm like, no problem. Where's this going?
Oh yeah.
Disorient. Oh sweet, that's where I'm camping. Who's it going to? Leo. Who's Leo? That's like just Google. It's good.
I think I said, "9, we're gonna do this."
Yeah.
It's mine. Take the truck.
Yeah,
It's worth it.
yeah. We were trying to decide whether or not to take the truck and haul everything or just get to ride. But one of the things, it was actually really fun. It's an amazing experience sitting down. He was going through all his art pieces and explaining to me like the challenges that went into them, what worked, what didn't work. And one of the main things that he does is he spends a lot of time, all his stuff is site-specific installs. And so the matching of the lighting to the ambient environment is a very critical part of it. One of the things that I'm not playing with is if you look at actually a lot of his art pieces, he really likes playing with the contrast between emissive light and reflected light. And so like even in the museums, you'll see it's an incredibly polished floor. On some of those, it's explicitly, a lot of his pieces are installed over water. And so you actually get kind of the secondary effects off the water. He didn't explicitly say that, but going through the book, I was starting to notice that like probably 2/3 of his pieces actually, some of them are intentionally set up. He has like a silver reflector with the white light, so you get like the secondary and tertiary reflections. But
So why not use a gloss black?
what's that?
Why not use a gloss black? Use matte black?
Because I was not trying to copy what he was doing, and I was so really what I wanted to explore was the interactivity, and because I don't feel that I'm good enough to actually produce something that's at that level of art, because there's actually a lot that goes into it, and this was really just an exploration. So it was challenging, especially with Matt on the controls, to try and automate the system in such a way that it would constrain it to what I felt was a more aesthetically pleasing type of the domain. And so that was actually one of the really interesting challenges, is how to give a user input to it without letting them like take the raw red, green, blue. Well, it's gonna get ugly for someone at some point. It's just got too much going on in it. But yeah, that was actually one of the really interesting things, is how to probabilistically spread stuff out to give variation in texture and without following the user's motion. And I think one of the ones that I like that and this is something that I actually haven't dealt with. The problem here is if you set them all at the same value, it all turns into white. And so you really need to, this is another one that's doing spheres, so it'll replace with, you really need to, I really should be randomizing some of that out, because it's really easy, everyone, to set them all to white, and then it turns really bland, and it's really just washed out.
Maybe you could use like
So
color theory to.
I have been looking at it. Yeah, I got the Bible.
Like Cooler?
Of color.
Yeah, just make it like they could set triads of color depending on.
Yeah. So that's yeah. I don't. The problem is I don't know what the right colors are to be picking up front. And so I think the first thing I'm going to try is, instead of just doing random, is to introduce the sinusoidal variation. So this one I actually kind of particularly like. In this one, what happens is the color's at a certain value. It's kind of wiggling around that value a little bit. And then when you put a new value in, it will randomly kind of take jumps towards the new value and then start randomly oscillating around the new value.
So it doesn't switch automatically.
It doesn't switch automatically. I mean, you can imagine what it would do if it was just black line or full solid color lines. So it kind of takes the user's input and then textures it to make something that I was happier with showing. So.
So you take it the mind share. What else did you miss? Did you take it to
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that
I
was
could
last
have.
week.
That was I've been so.
I swear I wouldn't run
So-
out of
so-
time there again.
No, we
So
were-
where you go?
Yeah.
Where the hell were you?
How can you not see it?
I don't know.
I mean, I was everywhere.
We mounted this on top of a table, and so if you were in the big hall.
Were you in the dark hall?
No, the next
Oh,
one,
that's
the
why.
big one.
Yeah.
No, this
The
would be
big
this.
one,
This
yeah.
so we actually thought about that. I think this is actually a little bit too bright. It's bright enough that it works. I think it works better with a little bit of light. In the dark hall, I don't think we can turn these down low enough.
Oh, we could check it
It starts getting ugly. It starts. I mean, you can really see. Basically what you start seeing is the LEDs respond differently in red, green, blue, and you start seeing the colors separate. And yeah.
out. You broken Mr. Suzu?
Yes, it's a working.
Twice.
Oh, It is a fun. It is an object pointer. Can you warp a warp of a warp?
I'm sure you got. I mean, the question is if you warp it by the same amount backwards, does it turn into the same thing?
My guess is it does. I'm just going to assume it's looking at system time and applying perturbation based on that. Yeah. So, yeah, this was a lot of work. So we got the challenge. This was built in about 2 weeks. For me, it was really tough because I had already committed to going to Safecast Hackathon in Boston. And so we showed this at Mindshare on Friday night. I packed on Saturday, flew the red eye up to Boston, worked for a week over there, flew back Friday night, we finished up the video editing Saturday and Sunday, and then submitted on Sunday. And yeah, so we did a Mindshare here, Maker Faire. This Saturday, Will.i.am's nonprofit is going to be, I talked with Tara, who's going to be there, and then the middle of next month, 20 Wonder event. They saw it at Maker Faire and asked. So, been working to, first get it off the truck and then make it a little bit more portable. Learning a few things here and there. I initially put 36-inch legs on there and then found out that the standard width of the doorway is 32 inches. Minus trim, so about 31 inches. So I just cut 6 inches off the leg, so I can now actually roll it through a standard door. It was, 3 feet. That's a nice number. Should make it plenty stable. And then I'm like, oh, doors are between 30 and 31 inches if you take into account the trim that's in there. Like, oh.
Does it have anything to do with rolling cart axle length?
No, I think that's where our train tracks come from, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The doorways have to come from somewhere.
Yeah, it is sort of arbitrary.
So I guess, I don't know if anyone has other questions. I can definitely show you some of the hardware.
What was your cost? I mean, not for time, but just all the stuff. What is?
Teensy was $20. Random parts probably about 30 or 40. Strips were $12.50 a meter, and there's 32 meters there. So I actually got a 30. I don't remember if I got 36 or I think I got 36 meters. So I have one spare, which we used. So I want to say about $3.80 for the strips, plus shipping was like $40, expedited shipping from China, which I was amazed. I assumed they would be here on Thursday. They showed up on Tuesday, and I was working really hard to kind of like get everything ready before the stuff was ready. So I had the firmware modified the way I wanted to use it on Sunday. So on Monday when the Teensies came in, I just had to put the firmware on them and then prove it out on there. And then on Tuesday, and then I had the firmware, most of this, like the full process set up on Tuesday so that when the strips came here, I was able to just plug the first strip in and start testing and make sure stuff worked. 1 strip worked, 2 strips worked, 3 strips was where I started to get up to current loads and I started blowing things up. And then 4 strips, unplugging 2 of them, put stuff up again.
So were you able to replace your processors?
I think I actually bought 6, and Matt had ordered some, so I loaned one to him. So I have 5. The 5th processor is the one that was used.
Okay.
There it is, right here. So these are all the fried processors.
All destroyed.
Yeah, so I fried 4 processors, and then today I actually destroyed the 5th one. I was moving it and the USB connector just ripped off. Fortunately, when I was at Maker Faire, I knew I only had one, so I bought a spare from Paul, who was a few booths away. So the spare is what's currently running in there right now. And I just ordered 3 more tonight, so it should be. Yeah. It was mostly labor. The nice thing about these strips is they're $12.50 a meter. And buying them in the States, they're selling them for like 30 or 40 bucks. But you can get a 4-meter roll for that price. Yeah, I don't know if you guys want to come take a look. This is actually the control board. And this is a little daughter board. And this is actually the level translator chip. So I've got, so this was actually an interesting thing. I wasn't quite sure how things were going to work. And so I actually set this up so I had jumpers from every pin going out and a second pair of jumpers. I knew I was going to need some sort of load filter resistance, but I wasn't sure what the value was. And I wasn't sure if I could just drive it direct. So this was actually very configurable. So I could actually break all these connections and rewire any pin to any location if I screwed something up. Because the pin ordering that comes out of here isn't like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, what I actually ended up doing was, since I had to add in this is the level translator board. So when I had to add this board in, I had to hand wire all the wires up and hand wire all the wires back down. When I put that in, I decided I would bring all the wires up in order. So I crossed everything up. So it's actually coming out of here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Because I added this in. If I was still running it direct, I probably would just be wiring. The labeling on here is the way it actually comes out of the chip, and that labeling is wrong. So it doesn't really mean anything right now. But I'm trying to figure out, I've been talking, so I talked with Leo at Maker Faire, and he actually, I've been thinking for a while about building this into a board. So what I'll be doing is I'm going to lay out a circuit board. I'm going to lay out a circuit board that, like a through-hole soldering, so it'd be a kit type thing. Takes the TNC on the top, and the one thing I'm going to add is an SD card, so it can play patterns off the SD card. And then I'm looking to put it in a Pelican box with waterproof pass-through connectors. And if I can get up to high enough volume, instead of using, so this is actually one of the other very, very useful things, is I went to All Electronics, and for $2.50 a piece, I had the ability to unscrew things when I was all crossed up. Like even when it was on the back, I literally just unplugged and plugged them all in crossed up, and I was able to fix it even though none of the wiring was right. But I would actually look and see if I could get waterproof connectors just built directly in. Because the manufacturer, making changes to the actual product is kind of a pain, but if you go to the manufacturer and say, oh, I want this product with this connector on the end, there's someone hand soldering it, and they don't really give a shit where those 3 wires are connected to when they hand solder. And so what I want to do is a waterproof box with all this contained in it, waterproof connectors through, and these things are actually sealed on both ends if you don't cut them. And so it would be waterproof conductors out of that.
So, but you cut them into 4 sections?
I cut them and jumpered so I could get, and this is this is kind of funny. So all the wires the same. One of the founding members does pyrotechnics, and so this is all zip wire from his last July 4th show. So they use it once and then they just toss it, which is why I'm actually only using 3 conductors. So one of these is titanium, but we have rolls and rolls of this stuff around here.
Oh, so it's used. It had been used for some other reason, and we just.
Yeah. When they wire up the fireworks from the panel, they have to pull wire to each one, and so there's just spools of this wire that they just, and then when they get done, they just coil it all up and throw it away. So done into dust. So that gives us lots of two conductor wire that's good for okay current. So, yeah, so that's probably going to be the next step, is starting to work
You gonna
on
work the show this year?
What's that?
You gonna work the show this year?
Work what?
Or are you gonna work the fireworks show this year?
Probably not. Are you?
Yeah.
I have to, the problem is I can't talk my girlfriend into working it.
And
And
you probably wanna spend
we're
more
both,
time.
yeah, we're both working so much that I have to spend time with her. So, it's the difference between watching it, so,
Yeah, it's a
basically
really
what Hutch does is
fun.
awesome.
I mean, it's a shitload of work. It's definitely.
It's not, it's the best experience, fireworks experience you
hard
ever
way
have.
to spend your 4th of July. It's not your standard barbecue pool party, but you get to
So basically it's
stay
the,
in the hot sun all day.
what's the, off the T10, what's the name of the? La Crescenta.
La
Oh.
Crescenta.
So normally what the guys will do is they'll hire 4 or 5 people. They do all the work. What Hutch does instead of that is he buys food, invites a bunch of people, so we have like 40 or 50 people there, teaches everyone in the morning how to wire up the explosives. You get all the stuff prepped, all proper safety stuff, and then you put them out there, and then it launches from this courtyard, and there's these 3-story buildings around, and people have to stand on top of the buildings to make sure that nothing catches fire. And so you have to wear safety goggles, a hard hat, and I had I wore my welding jacket just in case something came down. But it's amazing because the fireworks that you're normally seeing over there, they will come up to like 100-foot eye level and just explode right in front of you. A couple times you're ducking below the parapet, but it's like you're in the middle of the fireworks show.
Safety third.
No, it's completely safe. It's your job to keep it safe. I mean, but that's the trick. Is I think a lot of the people they're staring at the fireworks too much, and there was a lot of times where like burning pieces went. I'm like, guys, we need to. You have to walk over and kind of rub it out with your foot.
Yeah.
But it's a really cool experience. I don't know if I can afford to take the weekend
Yeah,
off.
this year the Culver City fireworks aren't going to be done.
Oh, in the marina?
No, Culver City High School
they're-
always has fireworks.
They're rapidly moving the fireworks like down with fewer and fewer every year.
Huh?
It's bloody
Well,
expensive.
Yeah, those things are
No,
I mean,
this year they're
ridiculously
redoing the
expensive.
field, so they can't do it. But yeah, most years I have a party. There's a park just on the other side of the wash from the high school,
Nice.
and you get a great view of the fireworks from the park yard.
Too
Well,
bad
from
they're
the
not
whole
doing
park,
this.
but
It's too bad they're not doing
you
it
can't
this
rent
year
the-
for you.
yeah, you can't rent the park. You can rent the hall, and the hall has a huge viewing area. So I've been doing that for about 3 years, but I have to think of something else to do for the Fourth this year.
I mean, what I used to do is if you go down to the marina, and if you've ever like been to the UCLA Aquatic Center there, like you rent a kayak once, and so you supposedly know the people there, you can actually go into the Aquatic Center. They don't really ask for who you are, and that's the closest you can get. It's actually past the point where they start cutting people off. You go down to the Aquatic Center dock there, and that's the best view. The problem with the Marina Del Rey ones is about every other year the fog's in, and so you don't get to see them.
Sometimes it's just right and they'll like explode just under
Yeah,
the cloud layer.
and then you get some really cool like haloing effects in the clouds as they.
Some of the
It's like-
choosing-
If it's really foggy, do they do the fireworks?
Yeah.
anyway?
I don't know if it's ever been so foggy they haven't.
I
Don't
don't.
have them twice. Maybe a delay.
I've seen them delay it.
So I don't know if you guys are. If you have any questions, if you want to play with the stuff, you're welcome to.
Don't quite know enough to ask certain questions.
What's that?
Don't quite know enough to ask certain
Oh, that's fine.
questions yet.
Ask.
I-
You
I
ask
got
any
myself
question.
a-
Whoa. Okay, I'm gonna stop now because.
Okay, but what I got myself a strip to play with.
Yeah.
And I just, I know now, don't turn it up full volume.
So the strips are pretty sensitive. They don't want to go above about 5.5 to 6 volts. So.
No, it's
Oh, that's interesting, because the strip I
Oh, you
had
stopped?
said something like not, said 12 volts.
No.
It did, it's like, okay, I'll.
No, wait, what's it? 12 volts.
I'm,
It's not at 5, luckily.
These are 5 volt. Your digital ones are typically 5 volts. Some of your just red, green, blue, like the temperature here, these are 12 volts.
okay.
So
Maybe-
that's what's.
Maybe that's what I have now.
Okay, so
Little
this works.
spark fun box.
If it's addressable, where you can make every one a different color. Yeah, that's where our Arduino class sits when.
Thursday
Tomorrow night.
and Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the same Arduino
I'll
class.
have to come in and finally sit in on the third
Yeah,
sit on
same
their
one.
class.
I think we pumped 100 people through that class now. We're ready to do an advanced one.
We can figure out what to do for the advanced one.
Motor Shield.
Low power sensing.
Low power.
Oh, the Adafruit
RFID.
motor
Oh,
shield.
that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be
I mean,
sweet.
I really love.
It's good,
Well,
right?
with Arduino, it's tough.
Are you gonna teach it?
So how, you talked about programming your little chips. Can you just set something up on your Arduino that programs?
Yeah. So this actually, Paul or PJRC.com is his website. He actually has a really nice little installer that puts all the parts you need in there, and then you just select
So
it
here's what I'm
as.
using a standard Arduino. And it's literally just those strips wired right in, and there's like an Adafruit library here that is pushing out. Right?
Yes. So there's, I mentioned a while back, there's kind of a few different ways you can interact with it. There's kind of the wiggling an individual pin, it's called bit banging. There's using the actual hardware. In this case, because it's a timing protocol, you basically have to bit bang it. An Arduino is capable of running one thing at full speed. maybe 2. Or wait, someone did. No, that wasn't. That was the TNC, wasn't it? Running custom C code.
Well, she says that new Flora, the Adafruit
She
Flora,
wrote the case up before.
that should drive 500 of the Hurdle Pixel chips. Version 2 is it just?
It doesn't
500.
surprise me at all.
So as far as the amount you drive is limited by
migraine-inducing.
the amount of RAM you have.
Ridiculous.
So
Okay.
So
And sometimes it's based.
I've had
sometimes it's
240
based
here.
on
I'm able to get up to about
frequency
16
of
frames.
yeah.
So you should be able to do 7 hertz updates with 500, a single strip.
Yeah, she said 30 frames a second, 500 at 30 frames.
30 frames.
That seems about right. That's what we initially calculated.
500, 100.
Then we hit like.
Yeah, that's
we
right.
said like 550 or
Yeah,
something.
that's
Yeah.
right there. Okay, so it's running 8 bits in parallel. Yeah. Okay, so if that's the case, it's 5 strips, or what's 500 divided by 8?
No, it's just one strap.
Oh, it's not. You have to be below 2 meters to get 30 frames a second up here.
That's only 120.
Yes, that's why.
This is the version 1.
That's why Paul's setup was using 2 teensies.
Yeah, I just ordered a bunch
That's
of.
why you had to use 2 teensies. I'm running a single teensy. You can only get up to about. It's not quite. It's like closer to 18 frames. But I think with 2, you can. He's using 120 on each strip, so he can update twice as fast.
Each one is.
I don't remember it. I calculated out. I want to say it was like 6 microseconds. Is that right?
Yeah, the new ones don't have.
No, that was an
chip
update.
on
That
the
was
back.
Right, the shape is on the left.
Yeah.
You can actually see it in these strips. You can see the whole block.
So I ran. I did some max speed tests, and with 1 meter, back of the envelope you can get up to 128. So something must be wrong there. No, that can't be right.
It came from Smartphone. What else did you
Yeah,
get?
that's all.
But and that's why I'm actually kind of interested in the full neon stuff, because it's running at 2 megahertz with a proper SPI chip. The Teensy has 5 SPI ports, or 1 SPI port, 5 chip selects, and I'll need to pull the docks and make sure, but it should be able to run DMA to all 5 of those. So the nice thing about DMA is it offloads all the work. You just drop it in there and say get it out, and it takes care of it. And what he did is he actually modified in the DMA handler. He's doing the pulse modulation. So inside the interrupt, like I'm pretty certain inside the interrupt handler. But with the first thing I'm going to be doing is getting SPI 0 working with an SD card, so I can actually read images off the SD card. And then the next step would be to get the other 4 SPIs running some of the cool neon strips. And with that, I should be able to get it up to, his big display, which was much bigger than this, was running at 128 frames. And that's getting into the ballpark where persistence of vision starts working.
Yeah.
So one of the things, at the bridge lighting, we asked about the possibility of putting multi-copters in the sky running energy displays. And so started looking into it. What?
That where that came from.
Yeah, he's like, he's like, can we get like 100 quadcopters and do patterns in the sky? And the important thing was the next sentence. I'll pay for it.
Yeah. You're like, suddenly it becomes yes.
Well, no, it wasn't yes, actually. I went and took a look at it from a reliability standpoint. I don't think that's the right way to go. So I was actually focusing on looking at heavier lift, an X-copter, with perhaps a POV display to get visually the large display there. So I started looking at these strips to do POV timing. They aren't quite fast enough. The other thing I wanted to do was an RC plane, a flying wing, and put linear elements in it and do a linear POV. So skywriting and light. But you have to get going pretty fast. The eye will integrate over about a 24th of a second, and which is why films are at that rate, because that's the point.
Yeah.
But that rate, I think, really applies to when you have the same image being refreshed. And so there's some of that going on.
I don't know, Super 8 was only 18 frames a second.
But you should have been getting a lot of glitches.
Yeah, you do, but it looks cool. It makes Super
Well,
8
so-
look cool.
But I was trying to figure out. Okay, so what I wanted to do was actually 1 meter a 1 meter wide plane and 1 meter layers. And I did the back of the envelope calculation and came up with somewhere between 45 and 55 miles an hour. The glider I have will only max speed at about 35, but a flying wing
Yeah.
with some big motors on it should be able to do that. Or an electronic ducted fan, but I don't think so this, I also wanted to run autonomous. And then there was one other thing that, let's see.
Yeah, so you're going to ask for forgiveness instead of permission on that, right?
What's that?
Flying something that big over. I'm actually surprised
Oh, no,
that
it's,
they let.
it should be.
The org like.
Oh, absolutely. To be honest
Well,
with
they
you,
are talking about
I won't
commercial
be-
applications.
I
of
won't be
drones.
flying it.
Right. Yeah. It's not. It's flying
No,
itself.
it's freaking autonomous. Someone hit go. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Someone hit go and threw it into
I
the
just
air.
brought it here. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that sounds like an awesome.
So
project.
I was trying to figure out if these LEDs can be going fast enough. It doesn't appear that they can, but I think with the cool neon stuff, he has some people who are doing POV stuff with it. The one thing so with the multi-copters, I started looking at it and was thinking of it just from a reliability standpoint. Maintaining 100 multi-copters in the
Yeah,
plant,
100 would probably be
well,
good.
screw that.
Kind of.
So I started kind of scaling back and thinking, okay, the disorient sign. So if we do 9 plus a spare, and try and look at individual elements, we should actually let me stop this, and so I can actually show you. I did some kind of preliminary models to figure out file multicolor. So one of Leo's early art pieces was a piece called Hex, and it's kind of it's a LED piece that is set up so it's kind of the deconstruction of a box. So if you take a three-dimensional box and start moving elements, you end up with this type of array. So like you can basically form the different box shapes out of it. And so I was trying to think about kind of what could be put in a lightweight platform with the slow LEDs to do something there. And so my thought was possibly a hexagonal piece like that.
Yeah.
Let me see. Okay, LED grid. So this one is kind of the brute force thing. So this is the correct aspect ratio for the disorient sign, 10 by 8. So one of the more interesting ones that I don't think...
Does that mean no POV?
I was thinking no POV. But what might...
Now the POV would just be sick,
I'm really concerned about it twisting the copter out of the air.
Yeah.
Because of the precessing on...
And hitting some performance artist on the head. As it
yes, so
down.
that's... Yeah.
You have to put a.
You're right. It's supposed to
Some
be
cute
visual.
little drones
No, I think
all
the correct
high.
statement is it's supposed to be visual art, not interactive art.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually don't remember where I saw this. Effects. Nope.
Pretty bad though if it worked.
Oh, so actually I found something else which I think will be shit. Huh. Fortunately, this was about 6 months ago that I was last, or no, it wasn't that long. Good God. March, no, that was the end of March. Feels like 6 months ago. So this was a concept with small POV elements.
Oh yeah.
Oh, what? It broke my link here? Oh, there we go. So the idea here is you could have a dot array and maybe big dots. But adding all the additional motors doesn't make that much. The initial thought obviously was a full-size POV case. The POV you have reinforcement, so you
Put
could...
on propellers.
Oh no. Unfortunately you still need the thing to fly. But mounted...
Aerodynamics.
Well, fortunately, the multis are not all that aerodynamic. Let me see where this asks me to save as, because then I might be able to find... Oh. Save as?
3 days left.
Aerial displays is where I put it. Okay. Cancel. Open Libre.
Yeah, you know, if you're gonna do it, you need to get going, because once you hit we were just talking about this today, the 90-day window.
Yeah.
Once you're within 90 days, it's like
All your volunteers
everything
dry up.
everything compresses.
And all your
Yeah.
So you think you have all this time and then
You just can't
suddenly
build the
fall?
yurt and the, you know,
93 days.
and the cool.
Yeah,
and the
90-day
cool-
window is like this weekend. The
Anyways.
fundraising is beginning.
Yeah, I had
You
So,
also have to
I'm-
get ready.
this isn't gonna happen. The
That's
linear
an awesome
the
idea,
the linear POV is more likely to happen because it's actually a lot simpler. I've been doing the stuff with SafeCast, flying the Geiger counters, partially as an exploration for what I
Yes,
need to
yeah.
do here. That's why we went with the multi. I knew we needed to lift capability, so we went with the Hex. And so now I have a full ArduPilot system that's first going to go into my plane, and then motor speed controllers and stuff is only like 400 batteries is $400 now. So once I have it proven out there, I'll buy that and then start doing my own explorations. I'm not going to crash the SafeCast drone testing for that. Yeah, actually, I don't have a ticket, so well, that's not going to be a problem.
Tickets
but
are.
I just need to figure out.
Tickets are easy.
I wanted to find a reason to go before I decided to go, and there's still a lot of other crap that I would have to bring together. I last March I became self-employed, and so it's one of those things that it's a feast or famine. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Something
it was funny. In March, I started getting congratulations on LinkedIn at 1 year at your current position. And at that point, I switched from saying unemployed to being self-employed. so yeah, I quit my job. I've been unemployed. Well, it's been a year, and I haven't gone broke yet. I guess it's self-employed at this point. So,
That's good.
yeah. So, what probably is going to be our project is Leo was interested in backing the building of these modular LED pieces. And
So building these into.
So
like,
basically turning
making
this
kits out of
into
those.
yeah. But, you would
How many of the conductors, you're using 3 conductors out of each?
it's a timing protocol, so it's power ground and 1 wire data.
Okay.
So there's no second, there's no clock, it's a self-clocking.
Because those little power pole connectors are kind of cool to use.
There's some nice
And they have like little rubber boots that you can buy that
yeah.
just all-
So Adafruit actually has some nice waterproof connectors, but they're only 3 conductor.
No, they're 4.
They have 4 too.
Yeah, most of them are 4.
Alright,
So
I'm exploring.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
absolutely. That is fun.
There's a sewing machine over here. Does anyone here know how to sew?
Well, technically, yes.
I mean, make sure.
We know how to do
Will
stuff
anyone
with
teach
sewing
me how to
machines.
sew?
Yeah,
You-
we're actually gonna have a little sewing meetup in a couple weeks.
Really?
True story.
Yeah. Is it another craft afternoon? Or is it
Craft
specific?
afternoon?
We were gonna be a little less formal.
It's not Sunday craft
Can I
afternoons.
break
is
the
the-
fabric and like learn how to use
Yeah,
this sewing
definitely.
machine?
And that's the good one,
Yeah,
right?
we got about 4 machines.
Yeah.
And that's a nice one.
Yeah,
There's
I
some nice
just
ones.
I
It does
was
like
looking.
96 different patterns. It'll do like you can put like A and it'll stitch an A. And
Yeah, that's rad. I don't know how to.
It's
sew.
not quite CNC. I guess you said the next level up is the one you plug into your computer and set your embroidery.
Yeah, I got sticker shock when sewing machines went up to $4,000 or $5,000, and they're above $10,000.
When I have
Yeah,
this
this
like
one,
long
200,
arm
300
quilters
is
even.
fine.
Yeah, no, this one right here is about- It's
I
under
mean,
400.
There's
Crazy.
good reasons to go up around 1,000 in
Well, those
terms
are-
of good, being able to handle a lot of
I can
fabric,
do
tough
leather, I
fabric,
guess.
stuff
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
But the really fancy stuff, unless you're doing, embroidery for hire.
Yep.
But anyway, I know how to sew. I
Okay.
do a lot of
Maybe somebody
costuming.
can teach me how to sew someday.
Yep.
I would like
I've
that.
learned how
So
to
yeah,
sew
we know
about 6 months
we're
ago.
gonna have a sewing potluck in a couple weeks ago.
Oh, very cool.
A
So
sewing
it's
I think it's
potluck?
gonna be it's gonna be like a Wednesday or Thursday. We've got a date if you wanted to know it.
You do costume stuff
So-
in film.
No, I
sew
actually
easy
look
clothing.
at costumes more, but I do sew a bunch of stuff on a fairly simple level and occasionally do corsets.
I need a
Heck yeah,
corset.
corsets.
Huh?
I was like, heck yeah, corsets. I want to learn how
I
to
need
make
a
a corset.
corset.
Corsets are not hard to make,
First, I would like to learn how to
but
sew.
getting them to
It's-
fit
it's
right
easy.
is the trick.
Yeah.
The
It's the 12th
you
on
know,
a Wednesday.
On a Wednesday?
Two,
The 12th.
2 weeks from tonight.
The
Wait,
12th,
no,
on
the 12th
Wednesday.
of this.
Oh,
right
I'll
here.
be here.
Yes, okay.
It's a
I'll be
So,
in-
clothing swap and open sew time.
As far
A
as the
clothing swap
connectors
too?
go,
Oh my god.
B
What
I
clothing
O
swap?
what I
N
really want to
S
find
M
is a
S
company
S.
that
I have
does
so many clothes
both
I
a
can
bulkhead version and
Yeah.
inline version, so that I can have the same
I'm
connector.
so excited.
you know,
Yeah, the Pelican casing just
Exactly.
screw the.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
awesome.
So the guy at Cool Neon is actually having these experimental connectors done, which have 2 big conductors and 2 small conductors. So it's got
Power.
DC
that's
power and
cute.
ground,
Yeah.
and so these ones you just get 4 big conductors and
Yeah.
you don't really.
Color Kinetics did all that on their stuff too.
I'm sure he did. And I'm sure he'll run into patent issues with them too. Color Kinetics got insane shit patented.
Do they?
Yeah.
Pelican?
No, Color Kinetics.
Oh.
Philips.
They're the professional grade of this stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, my glasses, so much better.
Yeah, so I mean that'll fit nicely in a Pelican case. I just need to get it. The one thing I will add is an SD card, so it can play back patterns.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
The
That's a
other
great
thing I'm
idea.
looking at is
Is this your clothes?
Yeah.
Can I borrow your
Paul did a really nice job using. So currently this is streaming network to my netbook right
These are my
there.
favorite pens.
I'm porting the processing software to Python.
You should get whatever they're selling in bulk at Costco.
These are great though. There they are. Okay.
So I'm porting it to Python so I can run it on the BeagleBone. So $45 computer there. The idea longer term, mechanically I want to figure out how that fits in the same box. The concept longer term would be to do something like fork maybe ArtNet, DMX and IP onto there so that this could act as a DMX endpoint to do real-time type stuff.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm really need to think hard about is how to synchronize displays, because these things are cool when there's one of them, but when there's one over there and one over there,
Yeah, that would be stupid.
and you're just like,
Yeah.
wait, those know what's going on with the other one. Yeah, and it's a little bit hard to do at those kind of speeds, but I think it's going to be kind of like causing the frames to sync up periodically. So and then this is something that I really want to do. YouTube is what I want. Okay, when I go there, I want to search for Meet the Creator. Yes, that's what I want. Okay, audio muted because you should. Yeah. I have to deal with the crappy audio from my laptop.
Sachi and Sachi.
Yes.
We need to get that.
So they have like, what's that?
So we need to get something that goes some audio out on that.
Oh, there is. I just need to. No, let me take a second to try and find.
Well, no.
Oh, that'll start up again. Oh, Matt started his.
Or HDMI, so it goes.
Yeah, we need to pick it off HDMI for sure.
Yeah, it's silly because that's what HDMI does.
So what is this really thick cable you've got here?
What's that? That's HDMI cable.
Huh.
It's an HDMI, but
It's an HDMI cable. Oh, well, that's fine. I don't really want to turn that on right now. Okay. So there's some. It's coming up. So all the aerial stuff you see being done like this is actually using a motion capture system. As you see the close shots, you'll actually see the silver dots, the silver balls on them. So most all your indoor stuff. Outdoor, with GPS, you can assume you're good to within about 30 or 40 feet. But this is the thing I think is awesome. And I believe that I should be able to make that work. So it's a DMX controlled pointing light, a meter on the underside of the multicopter, and they're having the light interact with the multicopter. So, can you imagine, middle of the fucking playa, top of Disorient bus, a beam of light lifts 100 feet into the fucking air,
Yeah.
and then, as you'll see later, turns sideways and sweeps the horizon.
Yeah.
That alone, it's one multicopter.
Yeah.
And that will just be fucking unreal. I think I can put an LED element around it, do OpenCV vision capture. As long as I'm only tracking a single target, life is so much easier. I mean, these guys, what they do is awesome. But I was looking at this and I just like, and I love the fact that it's going to be completely hidden, and all of a sudden this just beam of light extends into the sky, and with the dust in the air, it'll work
And if
perfectly.
you made it like a copper laser, that would be easy.
Copper.
Copper R. What's the super, like almost, it's that coppery color.
Okay.
Is
No,
it
so, yeah.
argon?
So I'm a little bit concerned about lasers because if you get to high enough power to do fun things, you get to high enough power to hurt people.
Yeah. Well, there's high enough power to hurt people's stuff out there already.
But most of that stuff is pointed out, and I've seen some come down the horizon.
Like the
This
clock
is
is.
specifically intended to point down.
Oh, to come back down. I thought you were
Yeah.
gonna just shoot it up and then 45 it out.
Well, no, I think you come up on a beam of light. You'll see they'll do it in a sec. You come up on a beam of light. It's tracking them. So as they move side to side,
Oh, okay, yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
and so the DMX control on the camera with a single target, and I'll just do like an LED strip, OpenCV, track that LED strip, and just keep the light in that middle of the LED strip. That should actually be pretty pretty straightforward.
Well, at night, in a sky like that, with a light target, it should be pretty
Yeah.
good to track.
And with only a single target, I believe that can be done with kind of entry-level OpenCV
So the
stuff.
mirror is angled by the hexacopter, or they
No,
can
the
move
mirror
it?
is the mirror is straight down. They
So-
have a
so
DMX-controlled light.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
The
They have a
mirror is
DMX-controlled
relative-
light.
The mirror is relative to the hexacopter.
No, the mirror is straight down right
The
now.
mirror's on a gimbal.
Yes, but it's flat right now. The
How's
DMX-controlled
the
light,
mirror always flat?
they just mounted it flat.
But what happens when the hexacopter is angled sideways?
You see overshoot.
Yeah. So the mirror is.
The mirror actually is on a gimbal, but they're not. It's flat right now. The DMX controller is tracking it.
Yeah, of course.
So the mirror is oversized.
Right.
So now this is when the gimbals kick in.
Right.
And then that would allow,
Now they get to.
yeah. And this is much more approachable, budget is much less, timeline is feasible,
Yeah.
one and a couple spares. It's like the copters are $3,000 or $1,000, so it's like total $4,000 budget with controller,
So how long does that copter fly for?
about 25 minutes.
And then, is it like all? Can you like set and forget, kind of?
It's would run it on an autopilot, but you have to manually take off and land that.
Right.
You don't trust
But
that.
I mean, but you could theoretically put it up and it would just.
Yeah, no,
Hover and-
it's so the interesting thing about the I'm not sure if that's intentional or if they lost one of them.
Well, it looks cool
I think
anyway.
it's intentional.
I'd be like, oh yeah.
But I just love the interaction between the lights on the
Yeah,
ground.
no, that
and
would be ridiculous.
yeah, and it's not that difficult a thing.
I think you need
Shit, you
four
can do it
though.
on a fucking pole.
Yeah, I think you need four. One is
fair.
cool. Four would be. Four would be
I'm thinking about what I
awesome.
can do. maintaining control of a single multi is challenging enough.
Okay, so 4 is next year.
4 would be
1 is this year.
well,
4 is
actually,
next
so 4 might be doable. It
Could
would have to
they
be.
talk to each
Maybe
other?
4
to-
times as
It would have to be independent operate. Well, that's.
That's
I mean,
just money.
if it's under 10,000, it's kind of all between like 4 and 10,000 is kind of all in the same ballpark. So it's as my advisor used to ask, how many zeros?
Yeah. That would put it between 4 and 16,000.
So, but could you use one of the Arduino autopilot-y things to
Oh, that's what I'm
talk
ready.
to each other?
Yes. So you can give them course. Yes.
So if you could launch 4, you could probably keep them equidistant and same altitude.
That's
from
actually
each other.
tough. You could with manual operators you can. Yeah, they have an alt-hold mode, so you can send them up to a fixed altitude, and then a person can very easily keep them in position. So the other thing I was looking at is I went to the games conference at UCLA,
Yeah.
and someone had two stepper motors doing laser writing.
Oh yeah.
So a high-powered green laser put this thing 100 feet up in the air, or 200 feet up in the air, and you can laser write out like 100-foot things on the ground.
Well, green's nice because even low, you can run low power and it's still super
Yeah.
visible.
And then one of the other examples that I didn't show, or the mock-ups, was the concept of using a pico projector to do back projection on like a 1 meter square screen. On the
I
outside.
love those. I have one that I just carried. Did the kids say about that when I was playing the videos in the Chinese restaurant?
Yeah.
I got one of the ones that just plugs into the port on the iPhone. And you just
Yep.
play any videos out of it. And we were in
Yeah.
a Chinese restaurant one time. And I just
Yeah,
started
my
playing music
concept was
videos
like
on the wall.
iPod and that, and then probably Wi-Fi into it, and
Or
just.
use it, the burn switches on the trailer.
Yeah.
I mean, the power's not going to be that great, but having reverse projection would be.
I think just the white lights with four helicopters with the mirrors would
Oh.
be.
You got something very sticky here.
Dude.
What?
What's happening?
It's not going to taste it. It doesn't have any smell.
I thought that was pretty. Nothing
No,
else.
it's not.
So you have an airplane too?
Flip it over.
I have a Sky Surfer, a Super Sky Surfer. It's a 2.4 meter. It's small. Or, I mean, sorry, it's a big plane, but it's small. I was starting to look at. I got it to. It's nice being able to write everything off.
Yeah,
this
it's
is
absolutely,
R&D.
yeah,
It's a
it's
business
research,
expense. I just like. I could buy RG pilots and
Yeah.
NRC planes as a business expense.
Rad.
Although the downside is you have to make enough money to write off against something.
Right.
So I've got this guy right here. It's a 2.4 meter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it would still be interesting just as even LED display. I was thinking I'm probably going to buy a I'll probably buy a second pair of wings because you can get replacement wings for it, and then go in with the razor blade and actually cut the grooves out that are exactly the right size for this,
Yeah.
and then actually recess it in there and seal the
That's
wings
baby
back up.
powder working for you.
So that helicopter you have back there was $1,000 all in.
The total for that one was about $1,800. That included a $300 controller that controls up to 20 devices, and $340 of first-person view, and $150 for pan tilt. The basic helicopter, I think, is about $800.
And how much can you put on that?
It should be able to carry about 2 kilos. Yeah, the frame is it's a DJI frame. Frame, speed. They have a kit. Frame, speed controllers, motors, and props is $318. The RG Pilot is $250. The